I guess speaking of both Bush v. Gore and this question of the transformation of the 14th Amendment into this tool for the rise of the corporation, there's a question of what happened to the Republican Party. We started this course with the birth of this like ideologically charged movement, very radical, connected to, and sometimes an uneasy relationship with abolitionists. By 1877, how much of that original Republican Party still remains?
You know, I think what happens is normal politics comes back. Ideological politics is very hard to maintain for a long period of time. The Republican Party becomes one of the most powerful institutions in the nation. The Civil War makes it that. And a new generation, the people who are running the Republican Party in 1877 are not the same people, by and large, who were creating it in the 1850s. They are a new generation who grew up in the party, whose number one loyalty is to the party, and not to any particular ideology, other than the ideology of the Union and the nation, which is not what's on the agenda in 1870s. It's very easy to fight electoral campaigns over these issues of a generation before. So, you know, I just think it goes through a transition, a new group, and it's the party itself that is now the determining factor. People are loyal to the party. Yes, the party is still the party of Lincoln, it says. It's still the party of the nation, still the party of winning the Civil War, and yet that doesn't tell you anything about what its position should be on the issues of the late 1870s and 1880s. So, you know, it just, like any political party, it's an evolving organism.
So, but how much daylight is there between Republicans and Democrats by, say, 1880 on the major issues of the day?
You know, that's an interesting question, because they fought. One of the funny things about the 1880s is the intensity of partisan loyalty. People were, in a way, the party today doesn't inspire that kind of loyalty. It barely exists.
Well, I think the change is that it's really the combination of partisanship with these strong ideological lines is very much like a later 20th century phenomenon. It's like even like a post-Roosevelt. It's about like the rise of Goldwater, rise of the right, and there's sort of similar moves on the left. This idea that your party should align with your ideology precisely, that seems to me it's rarer in history than our contemporary experience.
Yes, that is absolutely right. Also, the party back then generated its own money. You couldn't, like today, be a millionaire and just come into politics and choose the candidates and choose the issues like big money can do today. Then the party was the money. So even if you wanted to influence politics, you had to go through the party, not just as a freelance person like you see today. But you know, so looked at from some levels, you say there was no difference between the parties. Certainly the leadership, and certainly by the 1890s, that's what the populists are saying. The Republicans, the Democrats, they're both in cahoots with Wall Street, with industrialists. The average person doesn't get any benefits here, you know. But certainly people felt there was a powerful difference between them, because the intensity of partisanship, the narrowness of elections, even though the Republicans generally won, after Reconstruction, the elections were generally very, very narrowly contested, and until the mid-1890s. So, you know, and the loyalties stay put. You get the same results virtually election after election. So people are really devoted to their party, whether they are different or not.
Where does radical Reconstruction fit into this story? Is that, because it seems like that might be the last moment where you have this sort of strongly ideological Republican Party, but it must be that at the same time you have this transition to normal politics. And I know you mentioned in class briefly that, you know, at least if we're thinking about the role of capital in politics, that Wall Street bankers of the 1860s were actually like on Andrew Johnson's side during much of this process. So you could like untangle that relationship.
Well, yeah, first of all, radical Reconstruction is a very complicated thing, obviously. It is adopted for some people as a triumph of their ideology. This is the final triumph of the radical ideology. Many Republicans, though, go with it almost in desperation. That is, they've tried all these other things which have failed, and they kind of say, either we give up the results of the Civil War or we go down this road without really knowing what the hell is going to happen, you know? And they say, no, we cannot give up the results. We cannot let the blacks be put back into slavery. We cannot let the old Confederates take over the South again. So we've tried to work with Johnson. We've tried to pass the 14th Amendment. They rejected it. This is it. This is the only road still open to us. That's not a deep commitment. Nonetheless, once it's in place, it is part of the party, and the party will go with it at least for 5 or 6, 7 more years. And you know, and it is a lot of Republican voters. No matter what you think about radical Reconstruction, if you're a Republican in the North, you don't want to lose all those voters. Yeah. And you know, Grant is elected by a very narrow margin, very surprisingly narrow margin, and it makes you realize how important the Southern vote will be.
Yeah, why is that? Why couldn't this, like, you know, famed general generate more support?
Racism. I mean, the Democrats ran one of the most deeply racist campaigns in 1868 in American history. And it showed that it still had power in the North, you know. And the Democratic Party comes back from, it was not eliminated by the Civil War, it was not destroyed by the Civil War, it comes back. Now Grant wins, but you're right, of the white vote, Grant only wins a tiny, tiny majority, if at all.